one thing I need to say a couple things before I start. Number one, I'll welcome back the 10 or so people that are taking this class for the second time. I spent more than a week or two trying to figure out, are they taking this class because they feel they didn't get it right last semester, so they're going to take it until they get it right, or do they feel like I didn't get it right and you're going to take this class until I get this thing right? So whatever the reason, I'm glad you were back. I'm glad you were back. I'm also happy to see somebody because last semester I couldn't see anybody. I talked to a screen for 6 weeks and now I can see people. And I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll see what the reactions are when this goes through. So anyway, welcome to Donner Pass. First thing you're going to look at is one of the things I do when I do this class is there is an incredible field of art related to Donner Pass, the Donner Party, and all things connected to it. And this particular guy is a guy named Ji Lin. He's from China. And he has, this is his particular style, whatever it is. I'm not an artist. I don't know what his style is. But one of the things he does do, he is interested in the railroad experience and the Chinese railroad workers experience. And he will, there's another picture coming up. He draws pictures, and this is cliffs above Donner Pass, cliffs on Donner Pass. No people in them. And his perception is because the Chinese were invisible when they were here. So his pictures are, they have no people of any ethnicity. So he will draw this, and you will see another one coming up in a little bit with, has a distinct perspective, but no people in it. And this is called Cliffs on Donner Pass. And my wife looked him up because she was interested in his artwork. And you're looking at about $2,000 right there. So if you have some extra money laying around and you want to do things with the money, that's one of the things that you can do. Okay, and why exactly? There we go. Okay, Friday Forum, here we go. Okay. This is the picture of Donner Pass, and this is an introduction. This is about who came, what they did, where they went, and what they left. This picture is by Albert Bierstadt, and believe me, there's more than art here, but we'll do art at the beginning. And this is your standard classic picture of Donner Pass, or excuse me, of Donner Lake from Donner Summit. Bierstadt did a lot of Yosemite pictures. I also spelled his name wrong. There should be a T after the D there. Did this in 1873. He did it. He was commissioned by Collis Huntington, one of the big four. And Collis Huntington had a big idea for this picture. I'm sure he wanted it to be in the boardroom. And when it says 10 by 6, that's not 10 inches by 6 inches. That's 10 feet by 6 feet. And Collis Huntington hated it, did not like it. And the reason he didn't like it, I'll get that in a second. What you can see here, you can see this right here. And you always, it's very difficult to find a picture of Donner Pass without that being the railroad. And Huntington's perspective was he didn't play up the railroad enough. And so he didn't like this picture. It's now at the Historical Museum in New York City. And he didn't like it at all. The rest of this, if you can find a picture without the railroad, save it, remember where you got it. It's a valuable thing because the railroad is ubiquitous and really nobody started doing pictures until the railroad showed up. Okay, so class information, general stuff. We have to kind of go through this. This is 6 weeks. Class time is noon to 1:45. And if I make it to 1:45, it's because either you folks are asking me brilliant questions or I've just lost my mind. I'm talking too much. That's a long time to sit. I usually like to do a little closer to an hour and 30 minutes. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. This semester, I added some stuff to it, so a little longer. And my perspective, why I'm here, why I did stuff. So I've camped, ridden, hiked, got lost, wandered around, researched, and volunteered in various capacities about Donner Pass, the Sierra, and so on. Got lost is the interesting part. We'll talk about that a little later today. So I've been around there. I don't have a PhD in Donner Pass. Used to teach U.S. history, which is the next part. I was a high school teacher for 10 years, taught English, U.S. history. Was self-employed for quite a while. A marriage and family therapist, which might make you nervous. I'm not quite sure. It makes my wife nervous. And I ran the Boston Marathon, which is no reason to put there except for ego. I ran the Boston Marathon 2 years before the bombing of it. And if you're interested in the question, how did Bill do? Put it this way, Bill didn't scare the Africans. Nobody was worried about how I did. It was not a great day, but it was fun to do the Boston Marathon. And I was a community college counselor. My last physical, The doctor described me as grossly unremarkable, which I suppose is a good thing to be. I don't know if I want to hang that around my neck and say I'm grossly unremarkable, but it's okay. And this guy, if you remember this guy, it means you're around the 70s, and we all were. That guy, when I grow up, I'm going to be him. I'm still working on it, but I'm not going to tell you who he is. You guys figure it out. I don't know why I went back. I'm going to grow up and be that guy. So class information. And I do like questions. Feel free to ask. If I don't know, I will avoid the urge to make it up. I'm trying not to do that, but ask questions. And a lot of times the audience of the class knows way more than I do, most of the time. So feel free to ask. Okay, so what are we going to do in this class? We're going to discuss who came through the past, because that's what the thing says, what they did, what they left, and where they went afterwards, and other stuff too. For example, this person, who we will get to in 2 weeks, she took a long walk and she became the namesake of what was then the third largest city in the state of California. And she's buried there right now. So we'll get to her in 2 weeks, that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about what she did and where she went. Interesting story. Now this one, if you're an astute learner, you'll notice the date in the bottom. It's August 1st, 2020. And we were driving around there. I'd like to go up there and mess around sometimes. And you're probably saying, well, it looks like a piece of asphalt. And that's exactly what it is. And it's off Highway 80. It's right behind Truckee High School. And this may be, and I'm just, in my own opinion, as historic a piece of asphalt related to Donner Pass as there is around. And certainly if you have to have historic asphalt, this has its qualities, and we will talk about that in a couple of weeks also, why that piece of asphalt is so important. What I would recommend is if you're in the summer, when you pull over there, people get nervous. They start looking at me funny, like I start taking pictures of asphalt and things. I just could see myself talking to Homeland Security really quickly, but be careful when you go there. And there's a place you can go, because that's one of the things we'll talk about is where you can go. And I'll talk a little bit about, as it says right there, each class will end with a list of things to do or places to see based upon the day's content. For example, if I took my highlighter here, my pen, I would say, you can go where this guy went. Might recognize him. We get to him in about a month and a half. Well, he went to the same place these guys went. Now, you can look at that group and imagine that group of railroad workers is not going to hang out with that guy, but they kind of did. They kind of did in a manner of speaking. And as I said, all these people hung out in the same place. And you can go to this place. You can go to that place all you want. And other places also. We can find some of these. Larry knows what these are. There's over 600 of these monuments to mark the Immigrant Trail. These particular two are in the Nevada desert, Alkali Plain, Dead Cattle. And they trace it all the way through, trace the trail all the way through Nevada. And there's more than one trail, by the way, all the way through Nevada and all the way down to the end of the trail, which is not at Sutter's Fort. It's a myth. The end of the California Trail is not at Sutter's Fort. At least wasn't for a couple of years. So we'll talk about where those things are and how you can find those. And the focus is on these guys. And you'll notice what I don't say here. I'll list them down the bottom: topography and geology and weather. And I swear, the older I get, the more I'm trying to figure out topography is everything. The rest of it is just window dressing. Topography becomes everything. We'll talk about Native Americans a little bit, explorers, immigrants, trails, railroad, roads, aviation. Aviation's in this too, and recreation. This has to do with aviation. This is a bad picture of Jedediah Smith. I don't know, he has more pictures. We'll come to him next week, and legendarily, he had half of his face eaten off by a grizzly bear. He must have been the other side. You don't see anything there. This is part of the Immigrant Trail, the Dog Valley Bypass. You can see over here, it's Charles Crocker, if you can see behind yourself there, Chinese railroad worker. And again, this has to do with aviation. So you'll notice what is not there. There's no picture of a Donner Party guy. There is no picture of anybody dead bodies. There's no picture of cannibalism, no mention. There is so much more to this pass than that. Not to put down the Donner Party, that's a great story. And we'll spend a whole week, most of a week, doing the Donner Party. But there's a ton more than that. And frankly, the ton more than that's the good part, I think. It's more interesting part. So these kinds of things was what we'll talk about overall. And so week one, let's talk about that stuff, and we'll start here. Donner Lake and Donner Summit. Joyce Major is affordable. Interesting artist. She's from Tahoe. And it's interesting the perspective people take. You'll notice there's one road. This is Highway 40 that goes along the side of Donner Lake, or the Immigrant Trail. I was trying to figure what era she was referring to. There's no freeway. I don't understand what you do with the railroad, because there's the railroad to me, and there's the railroad again. There's not two railroads, so there's something I missed there. She's big on plant life. You see a lot of stuff. It's very gardeny up here. If you want to go at the right time of the spring and summer, it's like a garden up there. So, and she talks a lot about, she does a lot of painting and taking pictures, laying on the middle of the road with her camera. So that's Joyce Major. She has a website. She's more affordable than Ji Lin. Okay, so today's class, we're going to talk about the geographic scope of the class, where we're going. There's more than Donner Pass. Donner Pass is very small. I'll show you in a little bit. You couldn't do, well, you might be able to do 6 weeks on just it'd be square feet of Donner Pass. It's not large, but there's more to it than that. Personal connections we might have, geology and topography. We'll talk about weather and some Native Americans, safety and places to go and things to do. Now, if you remember that picture by Albert Bierstadt, this is called a rectification to Albert Bierstadt's Donner Lake from the summit. So Ji Lin did his own picture of Donner Lake from the summit. And you notice what he did. He moved it and put in railroad tunnels next to it with no Chinese railroad workers. So his perspective is the railroad workers are invisible. He'll put the work in, but he will not put the Chinese workers in. I was trying to figure out I think this is, I don't see any evidence of tracks. I'm wondering if this is after the tracks were taken out. But either way, this is his perspective. And again, a couple $1,000, you can have that in your living room. Interesting artist, okay? So let's go on down here and talk about the first thing. The scope of the class, you can tell when I initially did this, I discovered arrows in PowerPoint. So I was going to do arrows for a while. And it ranges from, assuming the boundary is Sacramento, we'll go all the way out here, which is about 240 miles. I looked that up yesterday, all the way out to the Humboldt Sink and out here to the desert beyond Fernley. And so out here, and we'll go all the way where the end of the Immigrant Trail really was for the first couple of years. It was by Wheatland, and this is where Donner Lake is. So if you want to talk, the nexus of all this is right there, but the whole thing kind of revolves all the way around this and goes even a little further than that. Believe it or not, the desert becomes incredibly important in Donner Pass. The more I think about it, I think the desert is the whole thing, not the whole thing, but the desert has a real impact on what happened over here. So Donner Pass west of Sacramento and Wheatland, and to the deserts east and northeast of Reno, and a few other places too, but by and large, this is where we're going to hang out. Okay. My brother watched one of these classes and he said, you apologized a couple of times for something that didn't work out right or something, and I did not know that I did. He said, you got to cut out no apologizing. Okay, well, I'm going to apologize anyway. I tried like crazy to get these two maps attached to an email to send to everybody in the class, and I guess it's the college email that is connected to Zoom, I suppose, does not take attachment. So if I were really with it, and I'm not sometimes, I were a student here, and if I could do it, I would take a screenshot of all this, because this kind of tells where we're going. If you look at the map called Donner Summit area, Donner Lake, pretty much down to Cascade Lakes. This is about 12 miles. The majority of stuff is right there. It's about 12 miles. And those 12 miles are over here. And this has got a different perspective. It's Donner Lake up here, and you'll see scenic old Highway 40, which we talk about, Interstate 80, which we talk about, the Donner Summit Historical Society, which is a place everybody should go once in your life just to see what's in there. Soda Springs, Stewart Peak, Stevens Peak, petroglyphs, the China Wall, all this stuff we're going to talk about to one degree, the Roller Pass, Pacific Crest Trail, Lake Van Norden, Immigrant Trail, all the way down to just about Cisco Grove and the Cisco Buttes. So that's about 12 miles. And you can spend your whole summer wandering around there and seeing various things, seeing stuff. We're going to spend our time today right about there, right about there. So, and since I couldn't give you the map, it's in a book you have to buy to get it. It's not even online. If one were a student here and one was a dedicated student, wanted to pass the class and get an A on the final, I would minimally do this. I wouldn't take any notes, but I'd just write down places. Because when the goal at the class to me is getting people to go places, just have the places there. As you look at all this, it's basically a trip up Highway 80. So what we're doing, and one of the things we're doing here, we're giving you sort of a historic perspective of Highway 80. So you write down like Cisco Buttes, Cisco Grove, Rainbow Lodge, and you can see all those places that are all still there. So that's if you want to get an A and have it on your permanent record. If you're just like me, just kind of hanging out to see something, just sit tight and just kind of listen and see what you can pick up. Okay, now you guys get to do something here. Your Donner Pass connections. And I put down here, I'm so disappointed. Let's see if I can lose. Yeah, I'd like to lose down here. Can't quite see everything. Okay, anyway. Donner Pass connections, we'll talk about yours in a second, but certain things when I say connections, how did you get, what are you connected to Donner Pass? Minimally, a lot of people just took a train over Donner Pass, although some people came to California through Donner Pass on a train. So it could be that. You could come on, being an immigrant from the 1800s and come in a covered wagon. You could be one of these guys running around with about 5,000 bucks worth of equipment, driving like bats out of hell down Donner Pass. I've done that before, and all I was scared of my brakes. Keep thinking, I hope they work, because you go really fast down Donner Pass. You can ski. You can be a person who wants to find the Immigrant Trail, and that's what you're looking at right there. This is a part of the Immigrant Trail, which again, we'll talk about a little later. It's called Camel's Hump, and it is behind. You go through Dutch Flat, down to the Bear River, cross the Bear River, go up the other side, take a left, and the road just follows the Immigrant Trail, and you can see the marker here, and that is Camel's Hump, which goes over. They have these different humps over there, have these hills, and I could never figure out for the longest time, why did they go over the hill in a covered wagon instead of around it? I finally found out why. Reason being, some of you are probably laughing, why didn't you know that? It's because if you went around the side of the hill, the wagon would fall over. So this way it stays flat and doesn't tilt. So that's why there's a couple of hills where it just goes right over. You could have been related to a Chinese railroad worker. Interestingly enough, they know none of these names. I don't think there's more than 2 or 3 Chinese railroad workers that even know their name. And we'll talk about that later too. And finally over here behind the class, that's camping. So you might have camped at Donner Pass too. So think about what got you interested in Donner Pass. And then we'll go over here and we'll take back to the boss of the show, Lori Brownfields, and talk about taking a poll.
All right.
Right?
And yeah.
Yes.
Can everybody see the poll up there?
I cannot.
Nope. Okay, let's try
There
that. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read the questions because that gets it onto the recording. There are 4 questions, and you can get to all 4 by sliding the cursor down, or if you're on an iPhone, I think it takes you through different screens. So question 1 is, the other thing that we want to say is we don't have any escape routes on this. And so if you come to a question where you don't have an answer, pick your favorite one. So the first one is, I think of these when I think of the Donner Pass area: snow, camping, cannibalism, hiking, transcontinental railroad, the Stevens Townsend Murphy, rock climbing, airline flights, Chinese workers making movies. Question number 2. my connection to Donner Pass is riding the train, camping, skiing, biking, hiking, shopping in Truckee, the Immigrant Trail. I am related to early immigrants, railroad construction, just interested in history. Number 3, I have heard of, and you can select as many of these as you want, the Stevens Townsend Murphy Party, Truckee the Person, Donner Party, Roller Class, Bloomer's Cut, the Big Four, Bidwell Bartleson Party, Lincoln Highway, 40 Mile Desert, Johnson's Ranch. And then the last one is I have been to, and this is another multiple choice, Big Bend, Cisco, Cisco Grove, Bloomer's Cut, Secret Town, Tunnel 6, Camel's Hump, Summit Valley, the China Wall, and Cold Stream Pass. Now, if you feel like you haven't been to any of those, Bill pointed out to me that if you drove up 80 to Reno, you have gone through Cisco. So that would get you an option. Looks like we have about 20% of the folks, oh, here, they're coming in fast. So we're up to 40% already. So we'll let it go for a few more seconds. So go ahead and get your answers in. Bill, while they're going through that, I will tell you that we can hear when Kathy's in the background.
We can see what? We can see what?
No, we can hear when Kathy is talking in the background. Just FYI.
I'll be right back. Don't go away.
So that is we're at 44 of 65. So we'll give it a couple more seconds. So if you're on the fence, make the selection. All right, looks like 46 of you have voted. So we're going to go ahead and
well, Lori, she's out talking to the window guy, so we may see her again.
Okay.
Well, highly unprofessional. Okay, we done? We must be done.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show it. So we have 49 out of 65, and we're ending the poll right now. Oh, we're up to 50. Okay, let's go ahead and see those answers.
Oh, geez. See snow, camping, cannibalism. Only 52% of cannibalism. Geez. Well, that's good. You shouldn't hear about that. Hiking. 5%, 10% on Stevens Townsend Murphy is last semester was 1 out of about 60. So we're moving along here, unless I got some ringers here. Rock climbing, that's kind of interesting. Airline flights, okay. Snow, making movies. Yeah, we do making movies in here too. We got the copyright police called us last semester about the movie part. We'll get to that later. We will get to that later. And your connection is the train, camping, hiking, shopping and trucking. Yeah, you can do that today. Nice day today. Immigrant Trail. Okay, railroad construction. I'd be interested if that's somebody whose parents or grandparents, great grandparents worked on it. I'd like to hear from you guys. And just interested in history, and that's a good one because there's a whole lot of history here, which most people have no clue. No clue. It's kind of sad, actually. Okay, and I've heard of Stevens Townsend Murphy, Truckee, the Donner Party. Get to them later too. The Big Four, Lincoln Highway, Johnson's Ranch, very good, 20%. Okay, that's not bad. And you've been to, yeah, Big Bend too, if you went up Highway 80. So Big Bend, Cisco Grove. Those are 2 different places, by the way, on the other side of the road, which we'll talk about. Bloomer's Cut is close. I'm surprised not more people have been there. That's an interesting place to go. Secret Town is my particular favorite to go, which I'll not get into right now because I'll bore people. Tunnel 6 is probably the most historic piece in the whole thing. In the whole 6 weeks, Tunnel 6 is it. Probably the most. Summit Valley, China Wall, and Cold Stream Pass. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. That's kind of interesting. Laura, can we keep this thing? Is this on record someplace, Laura? I guess Lori left. Okay, that's okay.
No, Lori went on mute. Yeah, actually, I believe it shows up in the poll, and then we will also have it in the recording.
Okay, good enough. Let's move on then. Okay, thank you folks for doing that. Okay, let's define a pass, which is probably sounds like the stupidest question ever to come down the pike, but it's not so stupid at all because a pass is, there's saddles and there's passes and there's everything else. This is Donner Pass. But it's not all Donner Pass. For example, I'll give you a tour here. When you look at this, you look way over here to the left, and that's Highway 80. And when you come over Highway 80, you are not coming over Donner Pass. You are not. That is not Donner Pass. Matter of fact, Caltrans, history whizzes as they are, calls it Donner Summit, which is a much more accurate depiction of it or description of it. It is not. That's not a pass. That's called the EUER saddle, and it's not a pass. Okay. Then you come down, and if you're really interested, Truckie's way back here. Along the edge of the lake is Highway 40, which ends up being this right here, coming across. You can see the bridge there, which we'll get to, and 40 comes across here. That is also not Donner Pass. Close, but it's not Donner Pass. On the other side, you see the railroad, and if you didn't know, I know a lot of you do, there are no tracks here because you can walk through this, and that's the China Wall right there. This is probably the Dutch Flat, Donner Lake Toll Road. There's so many roads down here, I get confused. Could be a branch of Lincoln Highway, whatever it is. You go up there and there's roads every place. And really the one that's most critical is way back here. Donner Pass is actually back here. It's a little depression right back here. I would assume you could call this Donner Pass, looking at the definition, a location and range of mountains of a geological formation that's lower than the surrounding peaks. So this is lower. Notice it's not lower here, and it's lower over here. So Donner Pass is only this big, and it's not very long. So it's a very small piece of territory. You can wander around there forever, but as far as what's there, it's just a pass, and it's a very small thing. It comes up, goes over, and goes into Summit Valley. So it's not very big at all. And that being a pass, and again, you can walk this part. You can walk the whole Immerkin Trail, actually. I was up there last time on December 2nd in the snow, and there was so little snow I could have walked it that day. But I chose not to, for good reason. So let's pass. We have another pass. This is me. This is the back of me. And this was in, I believe, last July. And this was, I refer to it as the Mount Judah Death March, which we basically took. Trail starts way down here. This is Highway 40 right here. Comes up, goes around Mount Judah, across the top of Mount Judah, and comes down. And this is me going downhill. You notice I'm looking down because I was getting so tired. I thought I was going to just hit a rock and fall on my face. I'm going down to Coldstream Pass, which is over here. So really, when you think of Donner Pass, you've got Donner Pass over here. You got Coldstream Pass here, and the Immerkin Trail comes right up here, a different branch of it. And behind me is Roller Pass, which is the third pass that's up there, and they're all about 2 miles apart. So this is one of the things you can do. This one is not easy. This one is not, I didn't like it. I sweat like a horse that day. I came home and I was not enthralled with the beauty of nature and the natural experience that I had. I smelled, I was dirty, and I was sore. But anyway, so another pass right there. And one of those monuments is also right there. Okay, let's talk about how we got here, because this whole class is affected totally by topography and how the topography was created and how the pass got where it was. So more than 1 million years ago during the Nevadan orogeny uplifting, going up. So the Sierra Nevada started to uplift 4 million years ago, and then you had glaciation, and then the mountains formed underneath, and they came up, and you can look here in Mono Basin, and it looks like that. A better way to look at it is this way. It's called subduction, is the plates, Pacific plate, the North American plate, and one, I believe the Pacific is going underneath the American, which makes the mountains come up. So what happens when that's happening, the subduction takes place, the mountains rise, and you get the gradual slopes. Think of Highway 80. As you go up Highway 80, there are no cliffs going up Highway 80 that you're driving on. It's a very easy trip. If you had a bicycle and they get the cars off the road, it'd be a great place to ride a bike because the grade is not more than 5%, or more than 6%. It's not more than 6%. And you get this long grade. If you go up to Donner Pass and you're on this side, you'll see bikers over there casually. They're almost, they could be singing a song, A Bicycle Built for Two. They're casually driving down up Highway 40 on this long, lovely grade that's just the most fun, and it's easy, and you put yourself in low gear, and you're just rolling up there, okay? On the other side, when you get to the top, it is a screamer down the other side. That's when you start praying to God your brakes work, And it becomes a scary ride, and it's windy, and it gets you down. You notice how fast you get. This is Donner. It's 12 miles here, 6 to Truckee, and look all the miles it took to get to the top of the summit here. It's a long grade there. It's quick here. It is quick here.
Hey,
You see, guy? Yes, ma'am.
Your cursor's a little small.
No, that's my pen. I will do this. Pen. Now I got a cursor.
Okay.
Okay, am I waving it around too much, or is that okay?
No. It's a little hard to see.
Yeah.
So we'll look about maybe getting a bigger arrow for next week. Yeah. Thanks, Larry.
I was enthralled with the pen. Okay. So the mountains are rising, and you get a snow belt between 6,000 and 7,000 feet, which you're into the Donner Party, you know that they have a whole lot of snow between 6,000 and 7,000 feet. It seems to be a belt of a lot of snow. Well, what do you get when you got mountains and you got snow? You get glaciation, which takes care of a lot of the surface, makes a lot of boulders, makes a lot of cliffs. Immigrants will tell you the hardest part of the whole trip was getting after they passed Donner Pass because of all the glaciation, the rocks, the cliffs, and so on. And all this, because the mountains get high enough, you get a rain shadow, which creates deserts in Nevada. And as I said, this becomes surprisingly big deal. For example, the eastern approach is steep, and this is not windy, it's windy, steep and windy. This is Highway 40, it goes all the way around. If you ever go to the other passes, which you really should, Tioga Pass is stunning. Ebbets Pass and Sonora Pass. Ebbets Pass is kind of the definition of the middle of nowhere. That's Highway 4 out of Stockton and Angels Camp. Sonora Pass is pretty much out there too. You want to go down the Screamer, go down Sonora Pass the other side. And Carson Pass all have steep, windy eastern approaches, but they have long grades on the west, as does Donner Pass here. So that's the eastern approach is pretty common. You can get, if you're a backpacker, you can get from the trailhead to the top of the Sierra in a very few amount of miles. You go to the western side, it takes you a long time to get to the top of the Sierra because it's so much more gradual, but it's really steep on the eastern side. Then you got the western approach to the summit. This is the picture here is it's a highway construction from 1963. We're looking west. And this is straight, and you can look at where the freeway went, straighter and relatively gradual. And Theodore Judah and the interstate highway engineers were not fools. They picked a place. It was a long, gradual, I wouldn't say it wasn't steep in some places. I wouldn't say it wasn't a little bit curvy, that it certainly wasn't like the other side. And it's interesting to look at this, first of all, to find out from the air what a freeway does. That is just destruction. That really is. And the construction, and here's Highway 40. The old highway. The rivers are right there. I'm thinking this is power poles over here. And the railroad is always there. The railroad is always above it, or seems like it's always above it. The railroad being up there. And we're looking west down into the valley. So western approach is much easier. Unless you're talking about this year and the last few, storms can deposit large amounts of snow. And these are just your classic snow pictures under Oldville. It seems like, I don't know how you folks feel about it, but we had a lot more snow when I was younger, and I doubt if that's true or not, but it seems like it was. So this is Mount Rose. This is other pictures. This is an interesting picture. This is from the 1890s. At least that's what the caption said that I got. That's the railroad workers clearing out the railroad. I guess after the relatively primitive snow blowers or snow engines went through to clear that out. Snow plows went through. So this is 1890. Or so, 1890s. You can tell by the cars, this has been a while. But lots of snow, and sometimes, but not lately. And then we got glaciation. This is Desolation Wilderness south of Donner Pass, but the point is made. It's just carved out. The glaciers come through, clean it out. You have very few trees, but you got a lot of boulders. You got a lot of cliffs, and it's a drag. Think of taking a wagon through there. It seems like it'd be easy to get rid of the trees, but it's harder. You don't have any dirt. So there's nothing's too flat. You're kind of up, you're down, and you're wangling your way around rocks. Okay. And my particular favorite, I think I'm becoming a desert person. Deserts develop in the rain shadow east of Donner Pass. Rain shadow is basically the situation that arrives arises when you've got a tall mountain range. Storms come in from one direction. In our case, they come in from the west, and then they hit the top of the Sierra and stop and dump a lot of precipitation on the top of the Sierra. You go from, see a picture in a little bit, you go from Truckee to the top of Donner Pass. The snow is just totally different. Like first, it certainly is today, which we'll talk about. So the further east you get, the less snow you get. But that means you don't get water, and you get deserts. This is outside Fernley, Nevada. It's called the Fernley Swales, and this is a place that once a year, the Oregon California Trail Association goes out and cleans it up, because you can clean up all the shotgun shells, the beer cans, and everything else that's thrown out there. But this is where the Immigrant Trail went through here. If you ever walk that, and I have, it's hard. It's just fine sand. It's not even beach sand. It's finer than that. And it's like you're in 8 inches of dust, and it's very difficult to get through. So Fernley Swales. And if you look right here, the area we're talking about, pretty much this is the Humboldt Sink. Go from here to here. The Humboldt River was up here, kind of helping that area out. But down here, there's no river anymore. And it goes down to Fernley, where the Truckee River joins in again, which we get to next week. So, and this comes back. The Donner Party was haunted by this. They were haunted by this. Okay. So in the book I read, one of the books I read, it talks about, okay, after all these particular things happened, the Sierra was now ready for man. Well, I don't think they got all that stuff and then people showed up. They were there anyway. But their Native Americans have been there, and they're still there. So let's talk about three groups that are there, that were there. First of all, the Martis were supposedly the first on the pass. That's what they say. These dates get really interesting when you read. Like, everybody's got a different date. But anyway, the usual procedure is you summer in the Sierra, because you're not going to be there in the wintertime. Only white immigrants are not white, but only immigrants are dumb enough to be there in the wintertime. They disappeared around 500 AD. They thought they were there maybe from 4000 BC to 500, and they left things. Here's an arrowhead that was found in Summit Valley. There's petroglyphs. And if this was last semester, I would say you guys could go see the petroglyphs right now. Unfortunately, they're probably under 5 feet of snow. You couldn't see them. They're buried. But when a wild man with the cursor. Excuse me. That's right next to the road. You can see that. That can be an easy trip to take. You don't have to walk more than 30 feet to see these things. They're right there. You got a nice monument there. You can see stuff. If you really want to work at it, when the snow here too. There's snow here too. There's a cave in the Martis Valley, which is east, Donner Pass being way up there. There's a cave up there, which has been, archaeologists said the Indians, Native Americans spent a lot of time in there. I spent a lot of years in there, shelter, observance, see the enemies coming, that kind of stuff. And this is one of the great straight walks. You will walk straight from the other side of this group of trees. There's a walkway, and you go, this is the face of the dam right here. And you walk, it's flat as a board. You walk a mile, you take a right-hand turn, you walk maybe down 200 yards and take a left, you walk up this gradual hill to this cave, and then it's easy. You can go right in, set the last 10 feet. You have to sort of be a gymnast to get in there, but it's not hard to do. Martis Cave in Martis Valley. So all these places were left by Native Americans. The interesting question to me was where they went. Apparently they think, people who know this, think they left about 500 AD, and the question is why and where'd they go? I have no idea where they went. There's some indication that they found some evidence in Yosemite of tools, arrowheads, things like that, that they know that the Martis manufactured that type, so they may have gone south to Yosemite. And the reason why, it could have been a tribe with a new weapon. It could have been, I don't know, they don't know. That's my guess. They just had them leave because there were some warlike tribes around. So Martis were there. There's evidence. You go into Arrowhead, you can see grinding stones and so on in Summit Valley, but they don't know why. These two, easy things to get to. This, easier than that. And it's hot out there too. Paiutes. And you notice I put Paiutes lived/D, live and lived in Western Nevada. They had a lot of early negative interactions with the explorers. with a long-term effect. One of the things I learned that I didn't want to learn when I started doing research for this particular class, you cannot avoid, when you research the people that came through Western Nevada and came into California, you cannot avoid it, whether you want to or not. You can't avoid the fact that the Native Americans, Indians, were treated really badly. And really badly is the euphemism. They were massacred, basically. And it started off with the Paiutes were not happy. They were treated poorly by the immigrants. Now, it could have been the Paiutes took something of theirs and the immigrants took something of theirs and so on, but it was not a positive interaction. Paiute oral tradition relates the story of a group of immigrants coming upon a cache of food for the winter and destroying the food. That'd be the Paiutes' food that they stored. That was Donner Party. Donner Party did that. That's the Paiute oral tradition that said that's what they did. So this was not, the Paiutes were not happy to see these people coming through. And you think about it, who would be? Who would be? They spent their summers around central and eastern Nevada. And their most famous guy, which we'll get to, he comes back a couple times, Chief Truckee, not only for the name of the town. Some people think the pass ought to be named after him and the lake too. But he went over, the reason I put him in here is he went over the pass. He actually ended up fighting in California in one of the small rebellions that they had. So that'd be the Paiutes, and they're still there. They're still there living in Nevada now. And the Washoe, theoretically, they were related to the Martis. They summered in the Sierra, wintered in the lowlands down by Truckee Meadows, which is basically Reno. And the problem they had, and I think the problem the Paiutes had too, was as settlers came in, they lost their hunting grounds, they lost their forests to settlers. They ate pinyon trees, they lost those, resulted in dependency on ranches, farms, and cities. So they basically lost what they did to take care of themselves and became dependent on the immigration and the settling. They still live in the Tahoe area, and their oral tradition speaks of starving immigrants who ate each other, who they tried to help. And then after a while, when they started eating each other, they kind of backed off and just kind of observed. But the point is, they said they knew they were there and they watched, but they stayed away because it was a little creepy. And they have historic conflict with the Paiutes. Historic. I put these pictures in not because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's cultural tourism or something, but to show you they are in society. This is a group of politically oriented Paiutes, Paiute Indian or Washoes, and Paiutes can do the same thing. They were in some sort of a meeting and they still try to preserve their culture. So they, like everybody else, they do what they can to live, and they meld it into 21st century culture or 21st century America and still preserve the culture. And they're here. They have a place called rancherias, little residences that they have there around. There's more than a few of them, actually. Okay. Truckee, California at 9:25 today. This is Truckee, California at 9:25 today. Truckee, if you don't know, is at the eastern and a little past the eastern end of Donner Lake, about 3 miles away. And I wanted to point this out because this is big stuff. Notice, by the way, these two people right here. By the way, this is taken off a website. It's called Tahotopia. You type in Truckee webcam, and you can watch this all day. We had the storm about a week ago. I sat there, talk about having no life. This is called Better Life Through Retirement. I sat there and watched the webcam all day and watched the storm add to the snow and watch the snow plows go by. My wife was about ready to send me to the home, but I moved on. Notice these guys, shorts. There's outdoor dining. God knows how cold that is. That's what all that is, outdoor dining. And the railroad is right there. And notice the snow here. These arrows are to indicate snow. This would be a great place to go today, to go to the store or to go eat. The sun's out. People are happy to see you. They'll take your money, and they do. Took a lot of my money once. And this would be a great place to go. So that's fine. But keep in mind the arrows. This is where Donner Pass is. The passes are up here. There's a lot of snow up there, a load of snow up there. Now, if you're an idiot like me, and I call myself an idiot, and you'll see in the next section why I call myself an idiot. I tend to do, I'll tell you why my wife calls it stupid stuff. I'd be up there tomorrow. I'd be looking at stuff. I'd be walking around the snow. I'd be doing things I shouldn't be doing. And that snow is deep. And I'd probably be by myself. And would be a really unwise thing to do because people can get killed up there. So I want to tell you, when you come down here, that's fine. We do not belong up here at all now. Now I'm going to talk about safety in a little bit. I will tell you why I'm going to stress safety. 2 reasons. Number one is I don't want anybody getting hurt. And you can get hurt, and I'll show you a guy who's going to get hurt. But from a selfish perspective, the last thing I want to hear is when you've got a torn meniscus or you're pulled out of a snowbank or something, to hear, well, that guy in that class told me to go there. I don't want to hear that at all. Call me selfish. I don't want to hear that at all. So I'm going to tell you right now, you don't even belong up here. Sorry. You don't even belong here. Don't go. Don't do stupid stuff. If you want to come up here, go to Truckee and drive by. It's really pretty to go across the pass, but stay on the road. And if it's snowing, don't go. You wait till the road is clear. If you got 4-wheel drive, that's fine, but I wouldn't even do that. I wouldn't mess around. Come down here. These people would be thrilled. And I mean, totally thrilled to take your money. They would weep tears of joy to take your money. You should see the traffic jam coming through on Friday night. So that was this morning at 9:25, and it made me, I'm sure the temperature there was probably about 25 degrees, but that's where it was this morning. So what I want to do is keep going a little bit. Talk about safety for a second. You know this guy? Okay, that's John Muir. John has taken a few hits lately. He's getting canceled now, I think, but John's taken a few hits. One of the things John Muir said, if you read his books, and this is in Yosemite Valley, I'm sure, or maybe Tuolumne Meadows, it's in Yosemite someplace. He was asked about, boy, you go, because he would go up the mountains by himself with no food or very little food, and he'd sleep on pine boughs. He'd rip them off the tree, and he'd take a blanket. And he said, don't you get worried about being by yourself and bad things happening to you? Then he'd go off and give this really weird, to me, it's like a 60s, late 60s, early 70s speech about nothing could ever happen to me in the wilderness. The wilderness will take care of me. This is a guy who climbs up the top of trees during windstorms to see what it's like. He apparently rode an avalanche down the side of a cliff at one point. He did all sorts of stuff. He said the wilderness would never do this to me. The wilderness is my friend. Very 60s perspective, you know what I'm referring to. Just nature is, we're not in conflict with nature. Nature is our friend. Nature will take care of us as long as we don't destroy nature. There's a book here. Well, he was wrong. This book is about Yosemite. If you haven't read this and you got some time, you have to be a little bizarre to read this book. If you spend some time in Yosemite, it's creepy. I spent a lot of time in Yosemite, and basically it's the story of anybody who died of unnatural causes in Yosemite in its history. So it starts off with, you name it. It starts off with guys going off cliffs, people disappearing from the trail, people getting eaten by animals. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Talk about guys going over waterfalls. It's just, either you like this stuff or you don't. It's a little, I read it once and that was about all I could do. But anyway, this book looks like a pamphlet. I've got it behind me. It's about that thick. And I'm sure they probably had supplements by now. There's more people who have died in Yosemite. But one of the biggest reasons people die in Yosemite, they say, and they got an initial volume of Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's got a whole volume too. They go off by themselves and do stupid stuff, especially they go off by themselves. There's people who just take a step off the trail to go to the bathroom and they never see them again. So safety is a big issue. Don't do dumb stuff. Down and pass is the same thing. You can get hurt up there. There's things you can do. Like when you saw that picture of me walking down the hill, all I always think I was hitting a rock and go, because I was tired, and going face first into the side of the mountain and having a bloody face and being a real drag. So we're going to take a break in a minute. I'm going to finish with this story. And you may want to send me I don't know what you think about this next story, but this is what I did. Okay, this is do as I say, not as I did. And this is what you don't do. My wife and I, my daughters were in college. We were staying someplace in Lake Tahoe. I think Sugar Pine Point State Park, we were camping. And I wanted to go up to Donner Pass, which is what I always like to do. And the usual situation my wife and I used to have is we'll go camping or take a hike, and I will take a hike and basically destroy her, and it'll be miserable, and she'll be mad, and she'll never go on a hike with me again. That's happened more times than I can think about. So I don't do that anymore. We just go, and I don't think she wants me to, but she's figured, well, that's what he's going to do. So here was my plan for the day. I was going to go up above Donner Pass, walk out to a place called Roller Pass, walk down a hill, intercept another trail that goes to Coldstream Pass. In other words, make a V. I go down and I go up. Coldstream Pass, come to the, and walk back down again and be done. A couple miles tops. So I got to the first pass, took a left, I walked down the hill, slid down my butt, it was really steep. Roller Pass, interesting hike. And then started walking east, looking for the trail that I was going to intercept. Found a trail, figured that the trail, this couldn't possibly be it. It's too skinny. You know, you're thinking wagons, right? You're thinking big. So I went past that. And I walked, and pretty soon I started getting into Manzanita. Then pretty soon the Manzanita was 6 feet tall, and the Manzanita was 7 feet and 8 feet tall, and I was bushwhacking through the Manzanita. And I started thinking I must have missed that trail someplace. So I sat down to think, and the next thing I heard was a railroad horn, seeming like it was coming right at me, although I couldn't find any tracks. Well, it turned out I was about 10 feet away from the edge of the tracks on Donner Pass. So I went down there and got on the tracks. This is the tracks that are not used anymore. It's just the railroad bed. The official railroad with the tracks was a little bit behind me. So I was close to that, but I was basically on the old railroad tracks. I was at the end, if you look down here, of this. This is a giant, long, very long snow shed, and I was way down here. I wanted to be way over here. So I'm way down here. And now you got an interesting situation. You got a guy with no map who's tired. I was out of water. I didn't have any food. And I wanted to get back to where my car was. So I thought, how do I do that? Well, the first thing I was not going to do was walk back over that mountain. I was not about to do that again. I was too pooped. Well, then I thought, I'll just climb to the top of the snow shed and walk along the top of the snow shed and go all the way around. I know what I do when I got here because there's rocks in the way. And I could just do that. Then I started thinking, well, there's a big drop right there. Maybe that wouldn't be a good idea. Then I thought, idea number 3, how about if I just go down? I'll go down to the lake and then walk back up the road to Donner Pass, which I wasn't going to do either. I was too long, too tired. Seemed like I'd probably get killed. Now, what I was doing was trying to aim for this. I was trying to get here. So this is what I did. I thought and I thought and I thought, and I'm an educated guy. I have a master's degree. I don't think I have one in common sense, but I have a master's degree. And I thought, here's what I'm going to do. So I walked into the trail, I walked into the tunnel, and 50 feet in, it is as black as the inside of your stomach. It is totally, you hear the cliche, I could not see the hand in front of my face. I couldn't see the hand in front of my face. I came back out again, thought and thought and thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a stick because the railroad leaves junk around. The railroad had lots of lumber. I picked up a stick like that, but it was much heavier because it's part of a railroad tie. And I didn't walk on a tightrope, but I basically held that on both sides of me and walked down that pitch black tunnel for as long as it's pitch black. The longer I tell this story, I think it's really probably 300 miles long at this point. It's probably 100 yards long. I just held it. And anytime I would hit anything, I would move the other way. So I'd move left, I would move right. I got all the way to the end. It eventually ends up with windows so you can see. So I walked all the way down this particular, got all the way to the end where I could see the end. I saw 2 kids playing at the end of it. And all these kids could hear was me walking in the dark. And those kids took off. I'm surprised I wasn't, I was frankly looking back on things I probably should have been arrested. But anyway, they took off. I got out and I got back to my car, went back to Lake Tahoe, told my wife what an interesting event I had had. And I told her what a genius thing I did as far as how to get out. And I said, I walked through the tunnel. It was pitch black using this stick. And she said she was not impressed. What happened? There was a hole in the ground. oh, that's true. What happened if there was water? And then I started thinking maybe that wasn't the best idea I ever had. So the next day, we bought a GPS receiver. I bought a flashlight. I bought a map and everything else. The point was, this was totally stupid. Pardon me for doing that. Seems to do that a lot. It was totally stupid. I was totally stupid. It was just a dumb thing to do. And when you go, and I was by myself. Other than that, it was a great trip. It was a great trip. So safety is all. If I had been in the back of this tunnel, fell into a hole, I'd still be in the back of that tunnel. Not talking about it. Not talking about it at all. And the interesting part of the whole thing was, last summer, I was taking the hike over Mount Judah, and there's the trail I was looking for the whole time, right below us. So this summer, I go back to this trail, and this summer it will be done. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little about safety. I wanna take a 5-minute break. We'll talk a little bit more